welcome back to the channel, and this is the 2021 iPad mini 6. And this right here, guys, is probably the best iPad that everyone should be buying. Not the iPad 10th gen, not the iPad Air with M1 or the iPad Pro with M1 or M2 chip. And as someone who's always bought the iPad Pro, sold it and rebought it again, the iPad Pro at its core is a great iPad, but it's not really the laptop replacement that everyone wants it to be. Now, as someone who makes YouTube videos for a living, I just wasn't able to create the kind of videos that I want to with an iPad Pro. I've tried it before and it was just crazy hard to make great looking videos on it efficiently. Sure, there's Final Cut Pro now on iPads with M1 or M2 chips, but it's still not the same as the desktop version with all of my plugins and presets that I made that I use on a daily basis. Plus, the file system with the Files app on the iPad is honestly not that great. So here we are in 2023 with the iPad mini, and I actually bought this iPad used and with the idea of leaving my laptop as my work computer and the iPad mini as, well, an iPad. So the iPad mini, just as a refresher in case you're not familiar with its specs, up front you're getting an 8.3-inch liquid retina display that features True Tone and P3 wide color gamut for the most accurate colors. The display isn't OLED, nor does it support 120Hz refresh rate. It's just an IPS LCD panel at 60Hz, but it still looks good in my opinion. The screen gets fairly bright at 500 nits peak, although I probably wouldn't be using this outdoors on a bright and sunny day. And also up front, there's a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera, which supports Apple's center stage feature, so that when you're on a FaceTime call, for example, it'll be able to follow you around and keep you centered in frame. Or let's say there's another person in the shot, it'll go even wider so that everyone's in the frame. Now inside the iPad though is Apple's A15 Bionic chip, which is the same chip you'll find on the iPhone 14 and iPhone 14 Plus. It's a really fast chip with a 6-core CPU and a 5-core GPU, so performance for the tablet this size is top notch. Obviously, this isn't going to be as blazing fast as the iPad Air with M1 or iPad Pro with the M2 chip, but I want to reiterate that this is just an iPad. Now, as for its battery, it has a 5,124 milliamp hour battery, and according to Apple, they're promising 10 hours of web browsing or video playback on this iPad mini, and we'll touch base on battery in just a little bit. Besides that though, this also works with the 2nd gen Apple Pencil, which I didn't opt in to buy just because I have the Logitech Crayon right here, which is fine for casual users. It doesn't charge magnetically on the side of the iPad mini, but it does charge via USB-C, so it's fine. And also, I haven't had to charge this thing in over a month, so that's been pretty great. Now around the back of the iPad, you'll notice that there's a single 12 megapixel camera with a flash, which, I mean, I don't really care much for that on the iPad. However, I will say it's a really nice camera and probably the best camera I've seen on a tablet this size. All right, now that we pretty much covered the basis of what the iPad mini 6 is all about, let's quickly talk about why I bought the iPad mini 6 in 2023 versus buying an iPad Air with the M1 chip or the iPad Pro with M2. So like I said earlier in this video, I would almost always buy whatever the newest Pro iPad is. It started back in 2018 with the 11-inch iPad Pro, and then when they updated the iPad Pro with the dual cameras, I bought that too. But I often found myself using the iPad only for, browsing the web or watching Netflix in bed, and I just didn't take full advantage of its power since back then Final Cut Pro wasn't really a thing, and LumaFusion, while it's a great editing app, the user experience just wasn't as intuitive as Final Cut Pro on a Mac. The iPad mini 6, on the other hand, is a much more affordable device, especially if you find one that's used or refurbished. And you don't necessarily need to buy a pencil or, buy a keyboard case for this thing since it's so small. The iPad mini 6 for me is my entertainment iPad. So as an example, if I'm going on a quick work trip to New York or LA and I know I don't have to make a video or have videos to edit, this will serve as my entertainment device when I'm on the plane or at the hotel, where I can go on Twitter or scroll on Instagram and watch reels, play some Apple Arcade games, or even answer a few emails. Now, sure, I can do some of the same things on my phones, but none of my phones have an 8.3-inch display, and the battery life on this thing is a lot better than some of the flagship phones that I've been reviewing. Now, besides gaming and consuming content, I also make sure that I set some time aside for a bit of learning, and for the past few weeks, I've actually been using Brilliant to build new skills and learn more about data and computer science. Now, Brilliant has thousands of lessons from foundational and advanced math to AI, data science, neural networks, and much more. Plus, there's a bunch of new lessons get added monthly, which is pretty neat. So I'm a visual person and I love seeing graphics on screen and how things work. And with Brilliant, I don't just get to challenge myself and learn, but also see things visually, which makes me want to keep learning and spend more time on the app. It's kind of like a game, but you're actually learning a new skill, which, hey, is a much more productive use of your time. Now, you can access all of the courses that Brilliant has to offer by going to brilliant.org/MarkLinsangan. And if you use my link, you'll get a 30-day free trial. If you decide to upgrade, the first 200 of you will get 20% off Brilliant's annual premium subscription. Again, huge shout out to Brilliant for sponsoring a portion of this video and also allowing me to learn more about data and computer science. Alright, so another use case for this iPad mini is when I'm at the studio or I'm out on a shoot. This iPad mini actually serves as my monitor. And the funny thing is, I actually use this to monitor my camera here when I'm recording my A-roll, and it's my wireless monitoring system that I pair with my Sony a7 IV. So with this monitor app that I have, which is called Monitors Plus, I can use the iPad mini as my monitor to make sure that I'm in frame correctly, my autofocus is set properly, exposure looks good, and I can also remote trigger the record button on the iPad so, I don't have to get out of frame, reach for the camera, hit the record button, and then be out of my way. Plus, if I ever need to make changes to the aperture, shutter speed, or ISO, I can do all of that on the iPad. Now again, I can do the same thing on my other phones, but this goes back to having an 8.3-inch display versus the 6-point-something inch displays that I've had. Now, could I have just kept my old 11-inch iPad Pro and used that for all the examples that I just said in this video? Yeah, of course, but the key here is the mini size. The form factor here is the key, and the fact that this thing barely weighs anything is pretty special. I can easily use this tablet one-handed, as you saw from this video, and throw in the A15 chip, the 2nd gen Apple Pencil support, or, the Logitech Crayon here. The 8.3-inch display with P3 and the incredible stereo speakers on this, the iPad mini 6th gen is the perfect iPad for almost everybody. And with that A15 chip, you know that this thing will get software updates for the next 5 to 6 years, and this still will be kicking by then. Now, some people prefer to have a much bigger display, and I respect that, but iPads even back in the day were always around the 9.7 to 10-inch display size, and I think with this iPad mini 6, this kind of changes your perspective on, how you use an iPad. This is the kind of iPad that you can easily throw in your purse or backpack and whip it out if you want to read something or play games on it, and it's not super bulky or super heavy to where it'll feel cumbersome to bring with you everywhere. So if you're looking into buying an iPad and haven't even considered the iPad mini 6, I would highly suggest you go into an Apple store or a Best Buy and play around with it yourself. I think you'll really like it, and if you end up picking one up, let me know why in the comments down below. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching, and yeah, I'll see you all in the next one.